A royal guard raided Camilla's personal property and caught her dripping in the missing heirlooms of the late Queen. She wasn't hiding, she was flaunting them. A diamond necklace that vanished from Crown Records, now strung around her neck at a private gala. She said the Queen never knew how to wear it, called it a relic, said it belonged to someone better. So the royal guard took it back, right off her throat, while guests watched in horror. And when she clawed and cursed and demanded they stop, Princess Anne entered with a full legal team and shut her down. Before we show you just how deep this betrayal went, make sure you're subscribed with the bell icon turned on and drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Because that night, the crown wasn't robbed, it retaliated. Just past midnight, Windsor Castle had settled into its usual post-ceremonial stillness. But in the jewellery audit wing, behind locked security doors and under dull blue LED strips, Sergeant Marcus Llewellyn stood dead still, eyes fixed on the monitor in front of him. He wasn't supposed to be there. His shift had ended hours ago, but something had nagged at him all evening, a discrepancy too small for anyone else to care about. Now, staring at the digital register of high custody crown artifacts, that whisper had become a punch to the ribs. Item 491-B, diamond necklace, Victorian cluster design. Custody temporarily relocated for private curation. Marcus scrolled down, pulse kicking. The authorization code wasn't one he recognized, but the authorizing officer retired 2 years ago. He kept scrolling. The shipping ID was registered under a private conservatorship. No institutional name, no museum code. Just an address in Berkshire and a meaningless line in the remarks field, finally free of mothballs. Marcus blinked, read it again. The necklace in question wasn't just any royal jewel. It had been Queen Elizabeth's personal favourite, worn at Garter Day, state receptions, the Platinum Jubilee. Never declassified, never lent out, never released from vault custody. He opened the metadata panel. The timestamp had been overridden, pasted in manually, no courier signature, no QR inventory scan. Like someone had written a fairy tale into the official Crown registry. But the worst part wasn't the forgery, it was the language. Free of mothballs. That wasn't a bureaucratic note. That was a jab. An insult dressed up in institutional tone. He opened the archival backup, an older version protected from live edits. There it was. The necklace had been last verified in Vault 3B 2 months ago. Photographed, weighed, documented. No indication of movement since, which meant someone had gone back, deleted that entry, and overwritten it with garbage. Marcus leaned back from the monitor, breath shallow. This wasn't just carelessness, this was contempt, codified, carried out under the radar, wrapped in falsified files and digital grease. And worse, it had worked. No one else had noticed. He stood up, grabbed at the printed log and slid it into a document case. His hands were steady now, colder than the room. One thought thudded through his skull like a drumbeat. Someone wasn't just stealing from the crown, they were mocking it. And if this necklace had gone missing under those terms, there was no telling what else was quietly being erased. Tonight, someone had crossed a line, and Marcus Llewellyn was going to follow it. The bell above the door gave a soft chime as Marcus stepped into the antique shop. Barely 9 a.m., but the place already smelled like dust, varnish, and secrets. Narrow aisles of gilt frames and faded oil portraits crowded the walls. Behind the counter sat Lady Caroline Whitby, wrapped in a wool shawl and hunched over a ledger so old it looked like it predated Parliament. She didn't look up. "You're early," she said, voice crisp and bone dry. "That either means you found something or something found you." Marcus pulled the evidence folder from under his coat and set it down in front of her. Both. Caroline finally looked up. Her eyes were sharp as ever, like a hawk watching a rabbit. She opened the folder, glanced at the document, then stilled. A long silence. "You're joking," she said flatly. "I'm not." She flipped through the registry copies. Forgery on the authorization code. No chain of custody log. Her fingers tapped the offending line. "Free of mothballs. Jesus Christ!" She looked up sharply. "And that's deliberate. I know. Whoever did this isn't just moving assets, Caroline muttered. They're laughing while they do it. She slid the page aside and pulled out her own records from behind the counter, a private ledger, written in her hand. I worked the regalia wing for 41 years. We kept double books always, one for them, one for me, for this exact reason. She traced a line down the parchment with a fountain pen. The last verified custody of the necklace was Vault 3B 2 months ago. I logged it personally. Weight, diamond density, chain tension, all matched Elizabeth's original item card from 1973. Then 2 weeks later, Marcus said, it gets logged as temporarily relocated under a dead officer's ID. Caroline set down her pen. Camilla's team. You're sure? I'm sure. She opened a second binder, emails printed and archived. They've been routing pieces for charitable exhibition for the past year, but the institutions don't exist. They're just P.O. boxes. This isn't preservation, it's siphoning. Marcus's jaw flexed. Why hasn't anyone said anything? Because they think it's modernization. Making the monarchy accessible, Camilla calls it. She slammed the binder shut. It's not accessibility, it's pillaging. He glanced around the shop. Empty, quiet. How far does this go? Far enough you're asking the wrong question. She leaned in, voice low, eyes narrowed. The real question is, are you prepared to get fired by Monday? Marcus didn't flinch. I took an oath. To the crown, not to whoever's playing dress-up with it. Caroline gave a short nod, almost proud. She reached under the counter and pulled out a small thumb drive wrapped in cloth. This holds the unaltered audit logs from the last year. Every unauthorized removal I caught. The necklace is just the start. He took it and slipped it into his coat. Marcus, she said, as he turned to leave, her voice suddenly grave, touch her property and they'll crucify you. I'm counting on it. And he walked out into the cold, already dialing the one person left in Britain who could authorize what came next. The frost hadn't melted yet. Thin crystals of ice lined the rails of the Gloucestershire racecourse, crunching under Marcus's boots as he crossed the paddock at dawn. He could see her in the distance, alone, standing beside a chestnut gelding. Princess Anne did not look up when he approached. Tell me this is exaggerated, she said, voice flat. Marcus stopped beside her, the printed evidence folder tucked under his arm. It's not. She took it without ceremony, one gloved hand opening the flap. She flipped through the pages fast, trained, practiced, then slowed on the forgery line, the false transfer. Her grip tightened on the crop. Free of mothballs, she read aloud. Well, that's subtle. Marcus didn't speak. She kept flipping. No courier logs, no registry trail. Then she looked up, direct, cold. Is this Camilla? Yes, ma'am. And this necklace? Never left the vaults under approved protocol. Last verified 2 months ago. Caroline confirmed it. All her handwriting matches. Anne let out a sharp breath. She's been playing museum curator since the funeral. Her staff frame it as modernization, but it's rot. She closed the folder, handed it back. You realize what you're asking me to do? I'm not asking you to do anything, Marcus replied. I just need the authority to stop it. You'll be eviscerated. I can take that. She'll accuse you of misconduct. She already is. Anne looked away toward the open track. The gelding snorted softly, mist leaving its nose in slow bursts. She's not just wearing mother's things, Anne murmured. She's gutting the meaning out of them. Piece by piece. Quietly. Then she turned, her face unreadable. All right. She reached inside her coat and produced a flat leather folder, already sealed with a wax insignia. This is an emergency custodial order under my authority. If she refuses to surrender the necklace, you act. You go in, you take it back. Marcus accepted it in silence. Anne didn't soften. She will go for your throat, Sergeant. Publicly. Loudly. She'll make it look like you violated protocol, breached royal space, humiliated her. And if this explodes, she nodded toward the frost beyond the stables. We're not putting the genie back in the bottle. Marcus met her eyes. Then we better be right. Oh, she said, tucking her gloves tighter. "We are." She gave the horse one final pat and turned toward the waiting car at the edge of the gravel. "Don't be late," she called back. "There's history to steal." And with that, she was gone. The Ministry of Defence garage smelled like cold steel and stale coffee. Fluorescents flickered above rows of olive-green crates. A conservator from the Royal Collection knelt beside one of them, inspecting the shock-absorption foam. Marcus stood with his arms crossed beside an unmarked SUV, his guard uniform replaced by a fitted navy jacket and polished boots. Plain clothes, but nothing about him looked casual. Captain Juno McCrae, the lead legal officer, handed him a clipboard. "This is it," she said. "Legal teeth, hard signatures, sovereign directive. If they try to block you, you cite Section 14B of the Crown Repatriation Act." Marcus scanned the text, nodded once. "First time this clause has been activated since 1964, McCrae added dryly. "And that was for a missing coronet in Malta," said the conservator, as she sealed a crate with Crown inventory tape. "This is different. This is emotional theft," she muttered, snapping on latex gloves. "Heritage triage. Put the jewels on life support." Marcus looked around at the team. Two guards from ceremonial detail stood quietly beside the SUV. Not elite, not flashy, but trained, loyal. "You understand what we're walking into?" Marcus asked them. They nodded. "No uniforms, no salutes. You see a guest raise their phone. Don't stop them. Let them film. Let it go viral." "What about Camilla's staff?" one asked. "If they get in our way," McCrae said, "they'll be legally considered obstacles to sovereign enforcement. We don't arrest anyone, but we record everything." Marcus turned back to the sealed crates. 4 in total, 2 for primary recovery, 1 spare for contingencies. He said nothing for a long moment. Then, "I want body cams on the interior team. I want timestamps logged every minute." The conservator handed him the final velvet-lined pouch, empty, just the shape of where the necklace was meant to rest, if they got it back. "If it's still intact," she said, "this is where it goes." Marcus stared at it for a second too long, then tucked it inside the inner pocket of his coat. The SUV doors slammed, engines turned over. No uniforms, no insignias, no protocols, just one goal: take it back. The gates of Broadwater House were 12 feet of black wrought iron crowned with golden finials, flanked by limestone lions and surveillance domes. Beyond them, Camilla's private estate. Technically not royal property, legally untouchable. Until now. Marcus's SUV rolled to a stop directly in front of the gates. 2 more vehicles pulled in behind, forming a wedge of silence and headlights. The gravel drive shimmered faintly under warm floodlights, a crimson carpet already laid out for the private dinner Camilla was hosting on the lawn. Waiters in white jackets glanced up from trays of flutes and foie gras. Strings of golden bulbs blinked in the hedges. A quartet played Vivaldi near the fountain. Somewhere beyond the terrace, expensive laughter floated into the dark. A security guard approached the driver's window, grey blazer, earpiece. His face barely registered recognition before stiffening. "I'm afraid this is a private residence." Marcus stepped out of the SUV and handed him the sealed folder. The man looked at the seal and paled. "You're not supposed to just show up unannounced." "We're not supposed to find state artifacts in someone's country home either," said Captain McCrae, as she emerged behind Marcus. The security man hesitated. His hand moved to his radio. "I wouldn't," McCrae added. "That's obstruction under sovereign recovery. You don't want to be the name on that report." He lowered the radio. Another staffer appeared, this one younger, barely in his 20s, holding a wine list and visibly confused. He glanced at the warrant, then back toward the mansion. Inside, guests had started to notice. Faces leaned against frosted glass. A few stepped out onto the terrace in shawls and bow ties, curious, whispering. One of them raised a phone. Another elbowed his friend and muttered something with a grin. "Let them film," Marcus murmured. The gates creaked open. The SUV wheels crunched over the manicured gravel, straight past the fountain, directly toward the side portico of the ballroom. No sirens, no announcement, just black vehicles gliding into enemy territory like a scalpel. Guests parted as the team exited. The music didn't stop, but it faltered, notes slipping, tempo breaking. Then Marcus saw it. Through the French doors, at the head of a curved stairwell draped in garlands, stood Camilla, in a navy evening gown, wearing the diamond necklace. The late Queen's diamond necklace, and its fire caught the chandelier light like it was alive, just as he remembered seeing it on Elizabeth at the Platinum Jubilee. Except now, it sat on the neck of the woman who once called that Jubilee an antique parade for a dying crown. He clenched his jaw. "This," he muttered, "is going to get loud." And then he stepped through the doors. The moment Marcus entered the ballroom, the atmosphere shifted. Not drastically, just enough that every glass of wine hovered mid-air a moment longer. Every string quartet note felt slightly too crisp, and every guest's eye began to follow him. The ballroom was a gaudy homage to royal pageantry, but none of it was real. Replica coronets in display alcoves, faux portraits hung with laughable symmetry, a throne-like chair in the corner that had never belonged to any crown. But none of it compared to the real thing, the diamond necklace. There it was, draped around Camilla's throat, like it had grown roots in a place it was never meant to be. 32 matched diamonds, set in Victorian clusters, tapering toward the royal pendant centerpiece. It sparkled as she gestured, laughed, raised a flute in the direction of some European arts patron. Marcus stepped forward. Her eyes met his instantly. She knew. He didn't stop. His team flanked him, slow, controlled, legal officer on the left, conservator at the rear, the two plainclothes guards boxing the corners. Not a word exchanged, just movement, just tension. Camilla lowered her glass with precision. "Well," she said, loudly enough for the room to hear, "I was wondering when the museum police would catch up." Polite chuckles, nervous smiles. Marcus didn't blink. "That necklace is property of the royal collection. It was never released. You are wearing it without authorization." "Oh, do spare me the chest-thumping, Sergeant," Camilla replied, tilting her chin up. "It was my husband's mother's favourite, yes, but he gifted it to me before her estate was even cold." Murmurs rippled through the guests. Marcus didn't look at them. "There is no record of any gift," he said. Camilla's smile twisted. Maybe it wasn't a gift to the files. Maybe it was a gift to someone he actually loved. The silence cracked. A few guests coughed. One woman looked away in embarrassment. Another whispered, "Is she serious?" Marcus's voice dropped. "You're wearing an item covered by sovereign custodial order. I'm acting under direct authorization from Her Royal Highness, the Princess Royal." "Anne!" Camilla spat, her expression souring. "Of course it's Anne." She stepped forward. "She's still polishing silver like the old days, isn't she? Still clutching her mother's brooches like they're medals from war." Camilla let out a short laugh. "Do you know what this necklace represents?" Control. Silence. She wore it to every event where she was expected to say nothing and smile. Marcus's fists curled at his sides. "You're not curating history," he said. "You're desecrating it." Camilla's smile returned, sharper this time. If she wanted it buried with her, she should have had the nerve to be buried with it. Marcus took one step closer, now within arm's reach, and said nothing. Yet. "Get out of my house!" Camilla's voice rang out like a whip crack, snapping the tension into pieces. Gasps rolled through the room, followed by a chorus of glassware clinking and silver cutlery being hastily set down. Marcus didn't move. He stood there, quiet, still, steady as the marble beneath his boots. "You are unlawfully possessing crown property, ma'am," he said, his voice low but absolute. "I have legal authority to remove it." Camilla let out a scoffing laugh, then turned to the guests like she was playing to an audience. "You hear that, everyone?" The mannequin has learned to speak. More laughter, this time uneasy. "I knew it," she continued. "Anne couldn't resist sending her little guard dog after me." Couldn't stomach the idea of me hosting a dinner with a bit of sparkle while she's still brooding in a drafty castle. Marcus's jaw tensed. He could feel the weight of his team's eyes behind him. He said nothing. You think I care what she signs? Anne's a bitter, useless rider who never understood diplomacy, just like her mother. Cold, condescending, always clutching protocol like it was a rosary. She took a step toward him, wineglass still in one hand. And Elizabeth, let's not pretend she was some saint. She was a dried-out relic, guarding her trinkets like a Victorian widow. Do you know what she did to me in private? Do you know the names she called me? She raised her hand to the necklace, fingers gently brushing the centerpiece. She told me this necklace wasn't for common display, that it carried the silence of the throne. Camilla laughed bitterly. Well, I think silence is overrated. Marcus stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm asking you one last time to surrender the necklace. Camilla tilted her head. And if I don't? You'll be documented in the seizure report as obstructing sovereign recovery. She narrowed her eyes. Try it. Silence. Even the musicians had stopped now. Guests stood frozen, half behind chairs, some recording, others too stunned to move. Then, slow and deliberate, Marcus reached forward. Camilla didn't back away, but her eyes went hard, her shoulders squared. His hands moved with precision, years of ceremonial training now being weaponized for the unthinkable. He unclasped the necklace from behind her neck, the mechanism clicking softly in the tense air. The weight of the diamonds fell into his palm like history itself. Camilla flinched as the chain lifted away from her skin, leaving nothing but a pale line and fury. She slapped his hand. You mongrel, she hissed. You think you're protecting legacy. You're just polishing a corpse. Gasps. One woman dropped her glass. Someone near the back muttered, Is this real? Marcus stepped back, the necklace now secured in his gloved grip. He didn't say a word. Not to her. Not yet. He just turned, handed the necklace to the conservator, who slipped it silently into the velvet-lined pouch. And then the ballroom doors burst open. The convoy had arrived. The ballroom doors slammed against the walls with such force that the entire chandelier rattled overhead. Gasps turned to stares as the guests twisted in unison toward the entrance. Framed by the arched doorway stood Princess Anne, clad in a long black coat, no tiara, no entourage of silk and sashes. Just authority, pure and unfiltered. Two legal officers followed at her flanks, faces taut, portfolios in hand. She didn't hesitate. Anne marched straight into the room like she'd been waiting 20 years for this moment. Her eyes locked onto Marcus first, then flicked to the necklace case now held by the conservator, and finally to Camilla, who stood frozen at the edge of the dais, hand still hovering at her bare throat. The guests parted instinctively. Sergeant Llewellyn, Anne said crisply, voice projecting like a gavel. Ma'am, Marcus replied, stepping back from the scene. Status? Necklace recovered. Secure no damage. His tone never wavered. Additional items suspected on sight. Anne gave a single nod, then turned to face Camilla. The room felt 20 degrees colder. That necklace, Anne said slowly, never left the crown. It was never gifted, never willed, never cleared. You wore it like a trophy over a grave. Camilla's expression twisted, but she didn't blink. How dramatic! Anne's voice sharpened. You falsified clearance under a dead officer's ID, you buried paperwork in fabricated exhibitions, and now you parade stolen history across your neckline to impress men who think lineage is a wine pairing. Laughter flickered around the room, but it was short, strangled, unsure. Camilla's jaw clenched. You self-righteous cow. You never understood what it meant to modernize. You sit in your stable smelling of hay and hierarchy, clinging to relics and duty like anyone cares anymore. Anne stepped closer. You are not modernizing. You are looting, dressing up rot with table settings and fairy lights. Camilla laughed, but her eyes were glass. She loved me, Anne. That's why you hate this. You think you were the heir in spirit, but you were just the assistant who never got promoted. Anne didn't flinch. She pitied you, she said, quiet but lethal. That wasn't love. That was regret. That line landed like a blow. Camilla's face cracked, just a flash, but enough to send a murmur through the guests. She gave you a seat, Anne continued, not a crown, and she trusted you to respect what she built. She turned to the legal officer beside her. Begin documentation. The officer snapped open a folder. By order of the Princess Royal, acting as executor of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's personal collection, a sovereign seizure is now in effect. All unauthorized heritage items are to be inventoried and returned. Camilla stood frozen, lips parted. The ballroom was silent now, utterly. Phones were still recording. Somewhere a guest began to quietly cry, and Anne, without theatrics, without triumph, simply said, "Let's finish this." The legal officer's voice was calm, almost detached, as he read from the clipboard. Item 1. Diamond necklace, once registered under Crown Inventory 82E, removed from unauthorized display and secured. Item 2. Diamond brooch, matching design, recovered from mantle cabinet. Item 3. "Stop them!" Camilla shrieked, her voice shattering the room's silence like a pane of glass. But no one moved. Not her guards, not her aides, not even the guests, many of whom now stood clutching champagne glasses with trembling fingers. "Do you all see this?" she yelled, spinning toward the crowd. "They're stealing from me! They're humiliating me in my own home!" The guests avoided her gaze. Anne didn't even glance in her direction. She nodded once to Marcus. He moved quickly, past the buffet of untouched hors d'oeuvres into a glass case nestled against the wall. Inside sat an emerald-handled brooch shaped like a thistle. Queen Elizabeth's personal piece, worn only during Scottish state visits. Marcus opened the case with a gloved hand. Click. He placed the brooch into a velvet-lined recovery tray and sealed it shut. Camilla charged. "You can't do this! That's mine!" she screeched, grabbing for the tray. Marcus sidestepped her with the ease of a man trained for worse. Her fingers clawed the air as she stumbled forward. "You think you've won?" she spat at Anne, hair dishevelled, voice cracking. "You think ripping heirlooms off my neck changes anything? I was crowned. I sat beside the king. I wore the robes. History remembers me, not you." Anne turned to her fully this time. "No," she said coldly. "History will remember who tried to burn it down." Camilla lunged again, but this time a young legal aide stepped between her and the necklace case, holding firm, clipboard raised like a shield. "I'll sue you," Camilla seethed. "I'll take you all down." Anne calmly passed a final case to Marcus, smaller, older, leather-wrapped with a broken hinge. Inside, a folded page in Queen Elizabeth's handwriting, initialed in faded blue ink. Marcus looked at it, then at Anne. She gave him a subtle nod. "That stays sealed. Transport with the rest." He shut the lid gently. Outside, headlights lit the ballroom windows as the retrieval convoy reversed toward the front entrance. Guests began murmuring again, drifting like ghosts toward the exits. 2 aides packed the recovered artifacts into reinforced transport cases, locking each with biometric tags. Marcus double-checked every latch, every seal. When Anne finally turned to leave, Camilla was sitting, collapsed into a velvet chair, lips trembling with rage, mascara streaked across her cheek like war paint. Anne looked back once, not in pity, in finality. Then she walked out without another word. The convoy departed into the night, tires crunching over gravel. Security gates closed behind them, and the estate, once filled with light, now felt like a mausoleum, full of noise but absolutely, unmistakably empty. The sun was just beginning to rise over Windsor Castle, casting gold along the stone ramparts and catching in the frost on the inner lawns. The security gates buzzed open at 6:02 sharp. Marcus Llewellyn stepped out of the convoy's lead vehicle, shoulders stiff from the hours on the road, uniform dusted with travel. The reinforced cases were offloaded silently, no fanfare, no announcements, just the quiet creak of wheels and the occasional hiss of breath in the cold. 2 conservators from the royal collection were already waiting in the vault antechamber, gloves on, white coats crisp. One of them, an older man with hair like fine wire, spoke without greeting. "We didn't think it would come back," he murmured. Marcus didn't reply. He just opened the first case. Inside, nestled on midnight velvet, lay the Queen's diamond necklace. It looked smaller here, without the ballroom glare, but no less sacred. One by one, each artifact was logged, photographed, and signed back into the Crown's custodial chain. When they opened the final case, the elder conservator reached for a ceremonial clipboard. He paused, looked at Marcus, and extended the pen. "You should be the one to sign." Marcus hesitated, then took it, wrote his name, and pressed his thumb to the authentication pad. "Guard of Recovery, Sergeant Marcus Llewellyn, Coldstream Regiment." He stood there for a long moment after, watching as they slid the necklace back into its velvet slot in display case 3. A soft click sealed the lid. The locks spun. Alarms rearmed. It was over. As he turned to leave, a junior aide approached with a small envelope. No name, just the Windsor crest in black wax. Inside, a handwritten note, short, precise, legacy secured, duty honoured, Anne. He folded it once, tucked it behind his ID badge, and walked slowly down the corridor, past the portraits of past monarchs, past the armour hall and the shadowy tapestries. A pair of junior guards stood near the courtyard exit, watching him with reverence. "That's him," one whispered. "He took it back," the other muttered. Marcus didn't acknowledge them, just adjusted the tilt of his bearskin slightly as he stepped into the dawn, boots echoing on stone. He wasn't looking for thanks. He wasn't even looking back. But the necklace was where it belonged, and that, for now, was enough. Should a royal guard ever have the authority to storm the home of a queen consort? Was Sergeant Marcus Llewellyn justified in unclasping the necklace from Camilla's neck, in front of donors, cameras, and Crown staff? And at what point does personal inheritance become outright theft, when the object in question once belonged to the monarchy itself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. Your perspective might just shape the next story. If you believe some legacies are too sacred to be stolen, hit that like button. Subscribe with the bell so you never miss the stories the palace hopes stay buried. And share this video with someone who remembers the Queen not just as a symbol, but as a woman whose memory deserves protection. There's another scandal brewing behind castle walls. Click the next episode on your screen, and I'll meet you there with a truth even the tabloids won't print. Thanks for watching.